Being a YouTuber is hard work. Hair, makeup. I've been putting a lot of time into YouTube lately.
Thank you.
I'm deciding to take a slower approach to it.
Okay.
And just
Like this
hopefully
much?
get all of these things that I gotta get done.
I mostly gotta get up here.
Okay.
Sweetie.
Don't worry, dude. Your hair's going to be perfectly brushed.
Oh, thank you.
Can I call you Sweetie, ma'am?
You sure can.
Not enough.
Much ado about something.
Now that I've had my hair and makeup done, it's time for me to go ahead and get serious with this hard work I've got to do around here. Well, it's the second week into September, and it's still hot here. During the daytime, it's getting up to around 98 degrees, so it's still warm. But I still have these fall feelings. I'm still excited about fall, and in the evening and at night, it starts getting really, really chilly, and you can get a little bit of the fall feeling, a little bit of a taste of what's coming. Well, I'm glad that you're here today. Thank you for joining me today at Much Ado About Something. Nothing exciting going on today. I just thought I'd bring you with me as I was getting supper done. I'm going to make soup, and I'm going to use up some stuff I have on hand. I love soup. I could eat soup any time of the day, any kind of weather. It doesn't matter. I am a soup lover. I enjoy the variety that soup offers, and it's just something that I just love. Well, today I've got some oil in my pot here, and I've got it warming up. I'm going to chop up an onion. I've got a couple of onions here and some potatoes, and I've got some carrots. My carrots have seen better days, but I'm going to cut off this not so great part, and I'm going to use the good parts. I've got a little bit of okra out of the garden. I'm going to go ahead and chop that up and put it in with our soup. I've got some tomatoes, just a few tomatoes left, and a few things to go in this soup to get it started for dinner today. Or supper. We call it supper. My daughter calls it dinner, but the evening meal is what I'm going to get ready to prepare today. I'm going to dig around in my freezer because I know there's things that I need to use up here. And I'm going to add those to my soup. This is some stock with some carrots and green beans, it looks like. And I know there's a few other things in here that I'm just going to pick through here and get out that I've put aside for soup. Just digging around to see if there's anything that I need to add. And I guess that would be about all of it. These are blueberries, so I don't think they would be good in there. But it looks like that's about all I have to add. I like to keep my little scraps all throughout the year. If I have just a little bit of vegetables and such left over, I will put them in containers, and I will use those to add to my soups. It looks like today it's going to be some roast meat, cooked roast meat. That'll be our meat for our soup. And it's going to be this mixed vegetables. I don't have these labeled, but I can see there's some green beans and carrots and broth. So that'll be fine to get our soup started with today. I'm just going to go ahead and start cutting up these onions. Now I'm going to have to make some tea. This is my kombucha. I keep this big thing of kombucha going on all the time. And it's time for me to take off my mother, the symbiotic culture of bacteria of yeast here on top. I'm going to have to take that off and put it in a bowl, put fresh tea in, and make a fresh kombucha today. I've got it over here sitting in my way because that's how I remind myself that something has to be done. I just put it in the way where I have to go around it enough to I have to pay attention to it. So that's what I'm going to do today after I chop up all of this stuff that I've got going on here for my soup over here. I'm going to work on making tea for the SCOBY. For the kombucha. If you're new around here, welcome. And if you've been around for a while, welcome back. I am so glad that you're here. Now, I live in the city. Me and my husband live in the city. We've been here for almost 40 years. We've got a small, what I call a microfiber farm here. It's not really a farm. It's I call it a micro farm. It's smaller than a mini. We have in between 1/4 of an acre and 1/3 of an acre of land. And we have chickens. We have 11 chickens that we get eggs from, hens, and then we have 2 little bantams that are roosters, and then 1 little bantam hen that are just basically pets for the chickens. Now I'm going to put this down in here. It's going to pop around a little bit, and I've got to get this plastic bag off of here. And I might have to run it under hot water to do that. And I'm just going to go ahead and let that unthaw in this pot. Let's see what this cooked roast meat looks like. It's in a pretty big chunk, so after it unthaws, I'll need to cut it up in smaller pieces. But I'm going to go ahead and let that work a little bit here in the pot. Let it unthaw and start to cook in a little bit more while I go ahead and chop up the rest of the vegetables. Yeah, I was talking about our little micro farm we've got going on here. We also have rabbits on our small little micro farm. I saved this to go in our soup today. I'm going to go ahead and heat up our onions in this cast iron skillet that I've got here. Let me make sure that you can see what I'm pointing at. I've got a cast iron skillet over here. I'll be using that to heat up, to brown our onions and some things before I put them into the soup. Now I saved all this flavoring from when I made chicken earlier, and I am going to add that to my soup because that'll add a lot of flavor. I'll put a little bit of oil in this pan. Now I like to think I have the art of making soup down pat because I can make soup on any given day out of anything that I have. I know what I like, and I have learned over the time of what I enjoy in the soup. Now while all of that heats up, I'm just going to go ahead and start working on these vegetables. Now we love onions. That's one of our favorite vegetables. We eat about 2 onions a day in this house, believe it or not. We use it in almost every dish that's not a dessert. We love the flavor and the texture and everything about onions. Now, I make soup year-round, but it seems like soup is especially good when it starts getting chilly. When the evenings start getting chillier and things start getting chillier, cooling off, it seems like soup is most delicious during that time. So, I will be making it even more. And along with soups, there'll be chilies and all other kind of varieties of one-pot meals included in my menus. Now, I've had a lot going on here. I have 4 of my 6 grandchildren that are with me today. They'll be playing in the background. You'll probably hear them. I don't want you to be afraid when you hear all those noises, because they get into some serious pretend playing. Now you can see my carrots there. I'm just going to go ahead and cut off any bad spots on these carrots. These have been in the crisper part of my refrigerator, and it's not that they've been in there for a long time. I've had them for quite a while. What's going on with them is those are the end of the first bag. Those are the oldest ones that I've had, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I use those up. The art of everything around here is I try not to waste anything, especially now when food is expensive. Those carrots will be delicious in a soup, and it won't matter that they are old. Now this potato may be too old. We'll just see how much potato we can get off of it. These are potatoes that I've had in the pantry for a while. I love potatoes. I could eat potatoes every day. And around here, we just cut off the bad, however that much may be, and we save the good part of the potato. We don't throw the whole potato away because there's one bad one in the bunch. We just go ahead and trim it up, even if it's just a little bit of potato. We love potatoes, but we do not eat them every day. So when I buy a bag of them, sometimes 1 or 2 will not quite make it near the end. So I may have to throw away a potato or 2, but it's very rare. Potatoes are so versatile and they're so good for you. They have so many nutrients in them. So I'm just going to peel up these couple of potatoes I got here and get them washed up with the carrots, and then we'll get making the rest of our soup. And now that we got our potatoes peeled, I'll be cutting up some of this okra. We'll be chopping that up. This okra is from our garden. We had a couple of okra plants this year, and we just grew them so that we could add them to dishes. Now, I love okra. I love it pickled, and I love it cut up in soups. Now, let me get all this stuff washed up here. So so that we can get it chopped up. Might be a few brown spots on these carrots that I'll have to cut away, but I'll do that as I chop them up. Get everything good and clean. Now I've got these carrots chopped up. I got the okra chopped up. And I've got the tomatoes chopped up. All of this is out of our garden. The tomatoes, the okra, the carrots are not, and of course the meat is not. Now I've got the onions over here cooking. I've got them, I'm going to brown them and add them to the soup. I'm going to add this tomato. We'll go ahead and get it on in here. And while I get the onions kind of browned to bring out some more of the flavor in them, all this stuff over here can just be stewing together. I'm going to go ahead and cut up these potatoes, and I apologize if you couldn't hear me a while ago. I've got this air conditioner on. I turn it on sometimes when it gets so hot in here when I'm cooking. Thankfully, I've got a family that loves my soups. No matter what I make, they appreciate it and they love it, and I don't have a lot of problem with anybody eating what I fix, and that's a good thing. There's many, many times that I just cook with what I have on hand here. And I try to make as many delicious, original meals as I possibly can from Whole Foods. We like to just have whole ingredients and make good meals. We'll give these onions a stir here. They're cooking a little bit. I love to cook. I love to experiment and cook different things. And I really start picking up when fall gets here. When the weather starts cooling off, I really start picking up with the warm meals. Not only do I like that it warms up the kitchen, but I also love just the whole process of it. Eating the good warm food when it's finished. And there's very few soups I've ever met that I didn't like. Now, I'm not one for heavy spice. I don't like anything that's too hot. I go towards a mild seasoning always. I don't like a lot of hot peppers. I imagine if we had ghost pepper soup, that would be too hot for me. I love peppers, but I prefer the ones that's not overly spicy. So I don't always add, but I think I might add a few peppers in with this soup for the flavor. Well, I've got these potatoes cut up. We'll go ahead and add them to the soup. You can see I've got all this stuff already here in the pot. Stir this up a little bit and see what we got going on in here. We got our okra, our tomatoes, our potatoes. There's our roast, which we will unthaw and cook in here a little bit, and then we will chop it up into smaller pieces. That beef stock and all that good stuff is starting to meld together in there. It'll just take a little bit of time. And then we'll get all this good stuff cooked together. I'll go ahead and brown these onions. I think what I'm going to do is make this soup chunky. I'm going to make it a chunky soup. Donald prefers small chopped food, but you know, you can always chop it up in your bowl if it's not small enough. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to go ahead and make it a little chunky tonight. Go ahead and brown these onions and get all this stuff good and cooked so we can add it together. We'll season it up a little bit. I think I'll add a can of tomatoes and maybe a can of corn. I love to see the yellow corn in there with those tomatoes. Not only are soups an exciting way to stretch your budget, you know, soups are cost effective. They're efficient because you can use up leftovers. I call them scraps, but that might not be the most flattering name for them. You can use up your leftovers and make delicious soups. They're just really, really a versatile, comforting, delicious, nutritious way to get some vegetables into your family. Now, I would eat soup every day of the week, but my husband does not feel that way. After about the third day of soup, he's starting to ask, where's the meat? He wants a dinner, every third dinner at least, to have good slices of meat, 2 sides, a bread. He wants what he feels like is a balanced meal. Now I'm going to add the tomato sauce. I'm going to go ahead and add it right in. And I'm going to add a can of corn. We've got the onions cooking. They're starting to get brown. They'll be good to go ahead and add into the soup. I don't know if you can see that good brownness or not, but there it is. Well, I think our onions are browned enough that we can go ahead and add them to the soup. Now I could have easily just not used those carrots or those potatoes that I had to trim up, but I wanted these. I just wanted to show that, you know, you don't have to waste a lot of food, and even some things that you think are not perfect can be trimmed up and you can use the good, and so much doesn't have to be wasted. See if I can touch this pan without it being too hot, and we'll go ahead and add these delicious browned onions. They smell so good. Now I'll have to clean this pan because I will be making cornbread to go with this soup. And we'll eat cornbread with it instead of crackers. Here are all of our good stuff in here. I turned it down a little bit just to add some other stuff to it, but we're going to have to turn it up a little bit so we can cook it all together. And it'll be time to add the spices. There's all the good stuff we've got in here from our garden and from our pantry. I'm going to go over here to the spice rack and see what we got, so I can see what we're going to add to it. Now I've decided to come on out to the garden and get a few herbs to go in here. I'm gonna get some sage. And just maybe some, see what else we got. Maybe a sprig of rosemary would be delicious in there. And here's a different kind of sage. We'll just throw that in for the taking. We'll go ahead and use these fresh herbs in our soup. Okay, we got a pretty big pot of good old soups simmering here. Everything's starting to simmer together. It's probably got another 45 minutes or so to simmer and to cook. We're going to go ahead and add our spices. I've got some just all-purpose seasoning here. Just got different spices in it. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of that in. This is ground bay leaves. I love bay leaves, so I'm just going to put a little bit of that, maybe about a half a teaspoon. With it being ground, we don't have to worry about picking those leaves out. I went out to the garden and got these fresh herbs. I've got some sage and some rosemary. I'm going to add a little bit of that in here. Just going to cup some of that right up into the soup. You can finally chop it with a knife.
Almost done.
You can finally chop it with a knife, or you can use the scissors, and I have the scissors. I've got little grandkids over here. They're running in and out. They're over here cooking on the floor. They got stuff drug out over here, and that's just the way it is around here. Grammy's in the kitchen cooking. They're going to pull out stuff and try to drink it and cook too. So that's what's going on over here. I'm going to cut up probably about 4 sage leaves. I'm going to add, just some of this rosemary. Absolutely love the smell of rosemary. It smells delicious. I've got 1 sprig here, and I just cut off some of those leaves. And that'll probably be all of the spices that I'll add to this. Maybe some salt and pepper. We have to add some salt and pepper. There was no salt on the onions. There was no salt on the okra or the potatoes. So we'll have to add some salt, some black pepper, and maybe even this cayenne pepper. I think adding a cayenne pepper would be fine. Would be delicious in this. So we'll just add 1 of these, just a few flakes. Don't have to add the whole pepper. Just spice it up a little bit there. Well, here you go. It's a delicious pot of soup. Chunky. Warm and delicious. I hope this encourages you to make soup. Even if you have less than perfect ingredients, if you're just trying to use up something in your pantry or in your kitchen, just make a good bowl of soup. It's a good, comforting, delicious meal. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this has just inspired you or motivated you to want to make a good soup and have it for a meal. And use up your leftovers or some of the things out of your freezer. And it's almost like a free meal when you do that. Thank you for joining me today. And like always, until next time.